Okay, I will call the meeting to order at what, 7:01?
Sure.
Which brings us to the minutes of,
I think we need to be on
what was
this.
it? No,
November 16th.
yeah. So, are there any substantial changes? Hello, Wesley. Then I'll look for a motion to accept them as presented.
Second, or I make the motion, seconded, whatever.
Okay, Quentin's got the motion. We need a second.
Second,
Okay, that was what, Sue?
Charlotte.
Anybody opposed to accepting the minutes as presented? Okay. That lets us move on to old business and park updates.
Okay.
Do you have anything to share with us, Jennifer?
Nothing under park updates right now, and I was wondering if the members have some things to share. That's really for you all. If any of you have been out in the parks and noticed anything.
The only thing we were gonna maybe bring up was, as usual, we're still going to Merrill Meadow very regularly. And I'm pretty sure that it was mowed completely last year.
Yeah.
And it was mowed completely this year. And we were thinking maybe the best way to deal with it is to make a dividing line down the middle and mow half of it one year and half the next, so that we would have, because there was a lot of really good seed heads and things like that were standing when they were cut down. They were mowed down, but it's mowed the entire field.
And there were good stems there as well.
Okay, well, that was a miscommunication, because I did communicate with Will Gresh, who is the director of groundskeeping. And I had discussed with Charlotte, and I also called Kim Stoner as well, to kind of figure out how best to balance the when we have labor available to do the mowing. When the best time, in terms of, we know that probably it's right after the first frost is probably the best time to mow. That was a little bit later this year.
Yeah.
But so we're always juggling a number of things. For some of our fields, it's safety. For some of them, it is managing invasives, keeping those down. So for I believe it was Mount Hope and Merrill, I asked them just to do 1/2 every other year, but somehow that did not get communicated. So I will do that again. I do think for the other fields, we're going to have to just continue to mow every year. One of the things is that it's really hard if you don't get it, if you don't strike while the iron's hot with Public Works, then they're not going to be able to mow it.
Okay.
Or they're going to get in there, it's going to be like a mud fest, and they're going to get their equipment stuck. So I have been working with Public Works. I will forward to them that next year we need to do 1/2 and 1/2 with both Merrill Meadow and Mount Hope, and we just have to try to do better.
Yep.
Okay, I have another, and this may be impossible, but another thing that we were kind of talking about, because the two places we hike is Merrill Meadow and Crandall Park up in Tolland, which is the other paved trail that's fairly easily accessible to us.
Yeah.
The trail at Crandall Park is always snow plowed. And so that it is heavily used all winter long because it's always, and I mean they plow it and salt it, and it's very easily walked like the following day after any storm. I wonder, because Merrow is so heavily used, especially by elderly and older people, if there's any way that we could, I mean, even if it wasn't like the day after, if we could figure out a way of getting, because I know they have those little plows that they use for sidewalks and things.
So,
because
has it been plowed at all?
no, I've never seen it plowed. But what happens is people walk on it, pack it down, it thaws and melts, and then it turns into like a skating rink. And I'm really afraid that because people still walk on it every day, they walk their dogs on it every day, and it gets really slippery. Like right now, it's bare in the field because the sun has gone to work on it, but down in the woods, it still is snow covered with big ice patches.
Okay.
Just something to think over as to whether or not we should, approach them and see if, because I think it's probably the most heavily used park in town. I would have no doubt about that.
Right.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'm thinking that if it gets icy in spots and people start wearing micro spikes where it's not icy, they're going to tear things up.
Right.
Yeah,
I know my pair is pretty aggressive.
Yeah, last winter, one of the really warm days, Tom and I went out with shovels and
Oh,
and chopped.
These are
Like-
old people doing this work.
well, don't do that again.
Yes.
And let me put in a note to Will. So basically, it's at the field mowing, and then it's seeing if we can get Merrow Meadow snow blown or.
Yeah. I mean, if they were gonna use some sort of a vehicle, they'd have to do the meadow part to the bridge, and then probably back around along.
They can handle that though.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just something to think about, because I say once it starts snowing, we have to go up to Tolland because they maintain that path meticulously. I mean, if there's a little patch of ice somewhere, there's going to be salt on it that day. They must have somebody go out there every day and check it.
Well,
If I could just add, so I was just there this weekend and I was thinking about that because the path was so icy.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, boy, it'd be nice if they would plow it for all the reasons you just said. But it's so close to the river, I would hate for them to use salt.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that if they plow it, that's great, but I'm afraid they're gonna put salt down too.
I don't think we want salt there. That is a way to really trash that meadow.
Just have them plow it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the old sand tension.
Right. Well,
That area is probably best to use neither.
let me talk with Will and see.
Okay.
And I'll just throw the Crandall Park. I'll say Tolland is doing such a great job at Crandall Park, and
Yep.
Mhm.
but we don't want salt. So like we're gonna have to kind of figure that out. And but I'll check in with him about it.
Yeah, it's just even when it's snowy and slippery, there's still a lot of people on it. I mean,
Yeah.
we were out the other day and there were, 3 or 4 groups that we could just see from the parking lot that were doing the slip and slide all over the place.
Yeah.
And I would be afraid that somebody's going to get hurt out there.
Okay.
well,
Um,
I think one thing to consider though is if certainly slipperiness brings the town open for some liability,
Right.
but you might want to evaluate whether a half-baked plow job gives more liability.
Right. Well,
Well, the
I
thing
mean,
is
they're,
with-
they're well versed in all of that for maintaining sidewalks and
Right.
everything. So I'll check in with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'll.
But I would just point out that it's being really heavily used even with it not being plowed, but it's kind of dangerous.
Yeah. All right, duly noted.
I wonder in terms of communicating with Public Works, if it's worth doing little mini consciousness raising about why we're asking the park, to mow half and half, because I think they might think they're being helpful, if some's good, more is better.
Yeah,
You know-
Yeah.
actually, Will is very attuned to this and I
Oh, okay.
shared, so I had a dialogue with Kim Stoner from the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. And first of all, she said it was, because I was like, what do I do? I've got a week where there's no snow, there's no fields to be maintained. The leaves are done and I have Public Works staff. Can they mow our fields? And it was like the first week of December. And I was one person from Brian Lavoie said, you're ruining like something. And I said, I don't know what to do. So I emailed, because Charlotte and I had communicated. And so I emailed Kim and I dusted off her, she has a guide to doing prescribed mowing. So anyways, all to say is Will and I have been communicating about this and what the goals are. So it's an ongoing process, but we will continue that. So, and it's a matter of me telling Will and then Will telling his staff, right? So it's got to go down that chain of command. Looks like Miranda has her hand up, Jim.
So I had a question about parkland that doesn't seem to be labeled down in my neighborhood that my family discovered the other day when they were walking around down at the end of Monticello. It's labeled as park. We were wondering what was up with that because it actually seems to have a little parking lot associated with it that's somewhat disused. And I was just wondering if there's any information on that.
Yes, so that's one of our, that is probably, I can pull up the, basically that's associated with a subdivision and then it connects into, it goes from Monticello over to Birchwood Heights and then you can actually walk over to the Moss Sanctuary. There is a little trail. We don't necessarily have a map for that, but it is part of the open space dedication that we got from the Monticello subdivision. So it is open. Yep. There's not a parking lot associated with it.
So there's it's right at the end of Monticello. There's this little area there that's paved that has park placards, not placards, but like medallions. Yes. Around it, and then there's actually a loop that appears to be pretty well walked.
Yeah,
even in the snow.
Yep. So I think it's more of a neighborhood path. It's not something we've done like a trail guide for, just because we don't necessarily have the resources. But it's absolutely open to the public. We have a bunch of those all over town, actually. So yeah, that's 100% open and available.
Okay. Just curious what was going on with it. So, thank you.
You can explore the assessor's GIS system and see all of the preserved open spaces in town and how they connect.
Yes, I saw it on the map. I didn't see anything having to do with the trail, though, that seems to exist there and things like that. So I was curious because it appears to be reasonably well maintained and reasonably well traveled.
Yep, and I'm sure it's the neighbors that are using it. Which is great. It's just not, part of a trail guide, or we just haven't We
Yeah.
haven't gotten to, it's not one of our main parks. First of all, it
Mhm.
goes right through someone's backyard. So
Mhm.
so we've sort of decided sort of by not really making a lot of improvements, that it's just going to sort of stay as a neighborhood trail.
Well, I'm glad to have it there then.
Yeah, good. Because you're on Felon, right, Miranda?
Right, yeah. So it's, my neighbor's property actually abuts it, and she told us there was something there and that we could get to it from her house. And
Yeah.
so we did explore it with snowshoes after that fluffy snow that we got a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
it was really nice. Just a
Yeah,
nice
no,
little
it's
loop where you don't need to be on the road if you're trying to walk around, so.
Could somebody wake up our chairman?
Is he here? Oh, he's frozen. Jim, can
I said, could somebody wake him up?
I wonder if someone can
Call him on the phone.
I think, he's frozen. I wonder,
Yeah, I'll give him a call.
okay, would someone be willing just to move the meeting up? There he is.
Well,
Jim, are
we
you
just-
here?
He's back.
Okay,
Okay.
Jim, we lost you there for a while. Can you hear us? I don't know if we can.
I don't know. Like he's not.
Why don't I move the meeting along since he, so pollinator pathway, is there anything that, I know Charlotte, you were at the most recent, I think it was the ecotype seed presentation?
Yeah, I haven't quite digested that material.
Okay,
It, somebody else was maybe there?
I wasn't able to make that.
There is a recording.
I agree with you, Charlotte. It was great. It was a lot of information though to process and kind of figure out and sort it all out.
really?
I mean, it was
And-
really interesting, really well done, but
Well, it's sort of like, what do you do with that information? Is that what you're saying?
no, it was a lot of definitions.
Mhm.
And then, yes, then the next step is, so what do you do with that?
Right.
And are the conclusions presented, are they supported by the data? I had some trouble understanding how, I need to look at it again. And I got in halfway through, so that was a little not a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think one interesting take-home point was, if you're doing a founder population and you always go out and collect seed at the same time, then you are ultimately selecting for individual plants as your founder population that have ripe seed at that time. So that could it would narrow the genetics of what you're going to come out with in the long run, as opposed to going out through the whole seed production season and getting the early ones and the mid-season ones and the late season ones.
Yeah.
And their data did seem to indicate that had happened.
And there's also a native plant working group that's trying to work through all these different definitions, ecotypes, and the bottom line is, I think the consensus is that it's great to try to use these things. They're just not widely available enough. And boy, wouldn't it be great if we could just get people to use natives?
Yeah,
Like
or at least
step-
stop using invasives.
That too, right? So
I did a talk at SIPWIG in 2020, and I think that's going to go up on the internet about native plants and genetics, and that might be a useful thing in terms of understanding some of the issues about the ecotypes.
But some of it is having availability, even if people are willing, but they can't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
There-
very
there-
expensive. I know.
There's also the concept of contract growing, if you're restoring a nature conservancy property, it might be very important to get the local genetics. If you're planting something in your yard, maybe less so. But I think there is the danger of introducing genetics from the Midwest, where we have a lot of overlap in the species, but the climates are very different.
Yeah,
And there
and
are,
that's where most of the seed sources are in
Right,
the Midwest.
yeah.
Yeah, even a lot of your nursery stock is brought up from the south because the growing season is so much long.
Yeah.
When I was working in a retail nursery, most of the stuff we had came from the south because they could get size a lot quicker than we could locally.
So I guess it comes to the point of, in terms of pollinator pathways, what does this committee want to do? Does this committee want to do anything with that work within the Mansfield parks? And where do we, I know we have several members who are interested in pollinator pathways. It's an initiative that's happening, but is there something, we're looking at mowing and trying to do a better job with that, but what, and eventually I keep talking with Ginny and getting some of our old fields on the pollinator pathway map. So that's something Ginny and I will work on. But other than that, is there something that I as staff should be aware of? Because it's not been a group that I've had the time to get involved with, or just to.
Did Jenny tell you about Jean Pillow is applying for a grant, and she was trying to work with pollinator pathway groups? And I don't know if this grant's going to happen or not, but at that point, the town might want to offer some support after they see what she actually does.
She's good about reaching out when she needs support, and we often write letters and support their grants. So
Yeah.
I've not heard from her, but I will, I'll let Ginny know, and I'm sure Ginny
Oh, I
knows.
think Jenny does know, but
Okay.
Yeah, there was
But
there was a request for support for the grant, but unfortunately, the grant closed today, so we can't even put a resolution for the package for them.
Oh, that was the urgent. I get so many emails. That was this urgent request.
Yeah,
And I was-
that's what that was.
Yeah. All right. Well,
But the
Yeah,
point
I
being
thought-
that if she gets the grant, at that point, she'll be reaching out, and that might be the point the time to respond.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
One thought I have.
I was thinking of Mansfield staff getting the grant packages together so much ahead of time instead of rushing it in the last few days. Yes, you can take that as a compliment, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not a grant. That's her. Yeah.
Yeah, I realize that.
I'll cheer her on all wholeheartedly. I'm not sure I can take that on though.
No.
One possible way that the town could contribute is we have a couple of parcels that are not necessarily public access. I'm thinking of the one down by the reservoir.
Oh, Portometer, yeah.
That might be isolated enough that it could be a group that wanted to establish a local founder community
Oh,
garden could use it.
Yeah.
But
I'll
I'm
let Jenny know.
not saying the town should be involved in doing the work,
Yeah.
but if that were a suitable site for somebody that didn't otherwise have a site, it might be something the town could offer and support.
Yeah, that's a good thought, because that field is big enough that there could be a good buffer between whatever activity they had in the reservoir. The other place that we're not really using is that, 4 or 5 acres off of, what is it, Deerfield Lane there?
Deerfield Lane, Old Spring Hill Field. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of old field sites that we have that if
Yeah.
someone wanted to work with me, it'd have to be initiated by them. But I am,
Yeah.
if you're at the Pollinator Pathway meeting, you can let them know that I'm happy to entertain that. And then we could look at they could present a plan to this committee and you could kind of let them know. But happy to work with folks.
Do we have anything on Connecticut Trail Finder? I haven't been on the site in a while to see what's, but I know stuff was being added to it last time I was there.
Yeah, so I've added, I think I've added all the parks, but what I want to do is, what happens is I give them the information and in their form, and then they go and they put it up on the website. And I think sometimes they edit it, or I make typos, or something seems to get lost in the translation. So I've gone through again and I've edited my submissions. And they've done that, but it would be great if folks could go on there, and if you see issues, just bring them to my attention and I'll work with Kim Bradley to get that up and running. But I have uploaded, I think, all of the parks. I think I had given them a lot of parks and then I had a little bit of time. So I just went through and edited all of my submissions and then gave them the rest of the parks. And then they were getting a lot of submissions from other groups. So I'm not sure if everything's up, but I have given them everything. So all to say, whatever's up there, if you see errors, please bring them to my attention and I'll forward that on to Kim over at Connecticut Trail Finder.
The new business, there's a draft of the park, the park programming brochure.
Yep, so I just wanted to kind of make you aware of what was happening in terms of our parks programming for the spring. Sue's leading something. We've got, there is still time if anyone would like to lead a walk. But I can add, the brochure hasn't gone to print yet, but so we've got, Chris Kiefner is going to do just sort of a forest stewardship walk on his property. We've got Sue and Tom doing their famous scavenger hunt over at Merrill Meadow. Aaron King from the Conservation Commission is going to do a spring migrant bird walk. And then I've got someone from, I was going to be John Hankins, but he's unable to do that. A guided hike in Summit Brook Wolf Rock Preserves for Connecticut Trails Day. So yeah, so those are the things we've got going, but that's just sort of like an FYI.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to be around the Trail Day weekend. We're going to be out of town, but I did also want to just mention that we did our tracking program. Was it 2 Sundays ago on the Mansfield weekend at the community center. It was a little bit funny because 7 people signed up and we had 7 people, but they weren't the 7 people that signed up. It's like,
I'm glad 7 people were there.
Yeah. Well, it was, we had one couple that was very interesting because they had just moved back to the area from California. So they were everything was like brand new to them, even though they had, I guess one of them had grown up here, but they'd been gone for like 25 years. So we didn't really get much for tracks because it was before we had any of the fresh snow. So it was just really old, crusty snow, and there were the tracks that were there were all melted out and everything. But we did a lot of indoor stuff, and we had two very enthusiastic, like elementary age kids. So we did a lot of stuff with them. So I had I think both of us had a blast with it. We even though it wasn't a very big crowd, it was a very enthusiastic crowd.
Well, thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I will call your attention that if anybody's free on June 5th and feels like reading that Wolf Rock hike, it is a hole in the schedule. The leader for Trail Stay.
Joshua's Trust gave me a couple of ideas of people I could ask. So I have to take the time. I gotta get that's on my list to reach out to them.
Yeah, the more people we get involved, the better. Sustainable CT. I assume most of you got the invite for the February 9th meeting in the evening. If I followed it right, we're up for recertification. So we go through and review things and, you know, say what we've done and what we plan to do.
I did, so we are hiring an intern. Hopefully that intern will start at the end of next week if we get the intern that we want, who was actually a Sustainable CT fellow this past year. And they're basically going to be going through our application and kind of assisting us with, you know, what resubmittals. But as you probably are aware from our last submittal, it's very prescriptive what you need to do. And so I did include the action sheet overview. It's a project that Ginny and I are taking the lead on for the town. Ginny is really doing the bulk of it along with this intern. So, and then this meeting on February 9th, we're still kind of ironing out the details, but we'll be just going through the sustainable CT, you know, what the recertification is and what everyone needs to do. So that's really what's going to be the gist of that meeting. And Ryan will be there.
I will not be able to attend. I have a conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the decision between which one the three things on my calendar. Most of the time being retired, I'm free, but everybody chooses the same night.
Yeah. Well, it would be great to get just at least one member from the committee to attend. So just let me know.
When is it?
It's February 9th. Yeah, it's a virtual meeting.
Okay, I can check. I might be able to.
That would be great.
Oh, that'd be super. Thank you.
Let's see here. So let's see.
That brings us down to the Mount Hope management plan.
I can do that.
Oh, great. Thanks,
So
Fran.
yeah, I just need the information. I'm having trouble hearing some things over somebody who's throwing a bit of a fit. But I can attend a virtual meeting on that night.
Okay, I'll make sure that you get the details.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they'll probably go out to the full committee at that time, but it's interesting just to learn about regardless, and it will be recorded as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. The full invite hasn't. It's more a save the date. The Mount Hope management plan. I guess this is what UConn thinks is the final copy of it in our packet.
Well, it's actually it's not necessarily what UConn thinks, but it's what they gave us. And, you know, all management plans have to be adopted by us, so, or by you. So it really is, Oops, are you there?
Yeah.
So all to say, I think we need to kind of go through some of our management plans. I think they did a good job. I think that, it's the goals. And so we have pre-COVID, we had a number of different management plans, like maybe 5 that we need to go through and establish the goals. All of the background information is there. I think we're going to use, I don't want to get too in the weeds with the narrative before. If there's something that is missing, then we can add it. But basically, here's the park. When we bought it. Some of you will have better history than I do if you want to edit that. But then it's okay. We have this park now. What do we want to do with it? And this is what these management plans are, so that when we're not here anymore, someone can go back and say, this is what we had intended. And obviously that can change over time, but there should be some sort of document in place that kind of describes what the history and intent of the park is.
I had one question on that, though. I agree, we need to be focusing on the goals part, but I wonder whether bringing forward a lot of the very good work that was done in the grant applications, so that that information doesn't get lost over time. Bringing it forward into the successor documents might be a good thing to do.
Oh, 100%. And if you, and in the other grants, in the other management plans that Weston Henry actually did for us, those grant applications are their appendices, and then they are definitely used as a way to, that's basically the history of, like for Simpson Wood, the majority of the narrative comes from the grant application because you guys worked so hard on that. So, yeah. So it's, I sort of see these management plans as a way to sort of organize all the information from the deed, the survey, when we've had an archaeological assessment, all of those things in one place, but then as a way to document the intent of these parcels, give broad management goals, not like fix this particular bridge, but more maintain safe recreational access. I think we don't want to be too specific in all of these plans, but we just want to make sure that the intent is done, and then use it as a way to kind of justify grant applications and things like that. So we do have like 5 or 6 management plans that need to be gone through with the goals and objectives that are ready and waiting for folks to do.
Can we do like one per meeting? I'm assuming we discuss these as a group.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I definitely think you need to discuss these as a group. I think that there's many of the objectives, there'll be sort of categories of properties, right? And I think many of the goals and objectives will be similar, like the goals and objectives for Simpson Wood and Sawmill Brook Preserve and Southworth Preserve and Wetton Woods, the intent, I think, will be really similar. So I think it's there. I think we probably need to look at the whole, all 6 of those management plans and come up with some like model goals and then switch them out. Like obviously, you won't need to be dealing with the invasives in the pond at Simpson Wood, but does that sort of make sense? Like sort of this broad outline and then narrowing it down for each property with some consistency across the properties.
I think we need a little bit more robust language, though, on the goal of maintaining the trails. Not so much to specifics of what's a problem at each property, but I think we want to be as broad as possible in what constitutes trail maintenance.
Yeah,
So that we can justify any grant we want by pointing to that language.
100%. That it's sort of, there is a good chunk of work that has to be done with these properties. And then once those properties are done, then we need to go do the rest of the properties. But and so anyways, I think I have some thoughts about that that I can discuss with you later on, but it is a little bit of, well, it's a chunk of work, I guess. But I think it's important work. And it's,
yeah, because the only looking at that trail maintenance maintenance.
so this
I
is
think-
something that UConn students did. I think they did a decent job. It's a draft. They did it for free. I wanted to present it to you. I definitely think the goals and objectives of this particular one need to be examined further. So suggestions on how you want to break up this work would be welcome.
I looked at the whole thing, and I do have a few comments here and there, not specific on the objectives, but elsewhere, and I can forward them to you.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think somehow in here we need some 5-year action items like the flooded trail bridge and the beaver work.
Yeah. I don't think we're ever going to get that trail back, to be honest with you. After having been out there, we're going to just have to either figure out a way to reroute that trail, but those beavers are not going away. And there's not a bridge high enough that we would be able to really put in, I don't think. But
Well, you could do it, but there's all kinds of boardwalks through swamps, but we're talking a total different level of construction than an Eagle project.
100%. So I mean, maybe that's like, to me, that is like $100,000 project. Like by the time you get, it's a long span. I don't know, I'm not sure, but if we were to get a contractor in there to do it, I would say 50 to 100. So maybe that's a grant.
Easy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to correct Ken. It's now a bridge across the lake.
Yeah. Well, it's a very wet, depending on the time of year and how active the beavers have been. It's a whole different place, really. And we have to learn to live with those beavers. And the other thing that's happening is that people, because they can't access the other side of the park from there, they're using the agricultural field as their own private recreational field. So that's very frustrating for Bill Varga.
Yeah.
Well, you can walk along the trail along the road to get to that meadow by the park. It's just that people choose to go to the closer field because it's nice, it's mowed, it's open, and they don't have to get their dogs to go through the woods.
Right, and then they let their dogs run there. So I'm in the process of getting some signs made with Bill, but that's sort of a secondary issue.
Barbed wire.
Yeah.
Jennifer, in terms of how to proceed, didn't before the two groups merged, didn't parks, we each picked a preserve and wrote up a management plan at one point? But before doing that, maybe as a group, we could take groups of preserves and do just what you were suggesting and saying, for these types of preserves, let's come up with the overall goals so that we're consistent.
Yeah.
And then once we have those sort of overarching goals, we could each take a preserve and go from there.
Yeah, so should we bring that up at another meeting? Should we have a special meeting? What do you think? How do you all?
Well, I seem to recall working with you, Jennifer, on trying to get some goals, some template goals ironed out.
Yep,
COVID
then I
kind of
think-
derailed it.
yeah. We never got to the actual putting it pen to paper because COVID happened. So should I mean, I have drafts of all those plans. How,
Don't give us those. I think we need to come up with those overarching goals first.
Yeah,
right,
that's what I'm thinking. that,
okay,
I don't know how far you and Ken were able to get, but if that outline is available, that might be a starting place for us to add to as individuals and then pull them together.
okay. So for the next meeting, what would you like me to provide you?
Well, what kind of notes from that attempt from 2 years ago exist?
I found a Word document from March of 2000.
2000 or 2020?
That sounds about right.
2020.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Why don't you send that to me, Ken, and I'll try to dust that off.
Okay, I got a couple of documents from around then. I'll try to send them all to you.
Okay, great. That'll be great.
And I may have already sent them, but I'm sure they're
Yeah.
buried deeper in your computer than they are on mine.
That would be fantastic.
And then even if you just pulled out the goals from those and circulated those, maybe that's something we could all start with, add to, revise or whatever. Either for the next meeting or the one after that, and we could review those.
Okay,
There's also some goals in the Mansfield Tomorrow Plan of Conservation Development.
yep,
What I'm thinking of is trying to collect enough things to help us decide, oh yeah, or what about this?
Well,
kind of
that's
thoughts in
what
our
this
head.
document is. It's looking back at the POCD and trying to bring it to what we can put for our parcels.
Yeah,
all right,
this
let's
is
look
a
at
good
that and
starting
then,
point to share out. Just remember that we're not supposed to do reply alls when we comment on something. Because all that freedom of information stuff.
okay, that sounds like, let's dust that off and try to keep progressing.
Okay, we're into the communications section. Is there anything we want to highlight here?
I wanted to just kind of go through and kind of share with you some information, if that's okay, if I just kind of run through this, Jim?
Would I make a
Yeah.
suggestion that we have the executive session before we do the communications?
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, that might be good.
a good idea.
Okay, so
Okay,
let me,
I'll take that as a motion that we enter into executive session. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Okay, and is there anybody opposed to us starting the executive session at what, 7:50? And, okay,
I'm going to stop recording now.
yes, please do. Thank you. And we don't have any motions from what we discussed in executive session. So that brings us communications.
Yeah, So I just wanted to kind of update you on a couple things. The first is that if you recall the Mountain View Acres subdivision that you spent a lot of time on, there recently was a subdivision modification and 4 lots were merged into 1 lot. So now it's 17.31 acre lot. Those are the 4 that are closest to the town open space on Coventry Road. So I thought you would be interested in knowing that. The second issue or second item is that in this year's capital improvement project budget, Kurt for his whole tenure as Parks and Rec director wanted to do a Parks and Recreation master plan. And so we are requesting that. And I think that Ryan Aylesworth is supportive of that. And I think that we can actually use some of the ARPA money, the whatever American Rescue Plan Act money that to do that. So that may be something that we'll be doing. And I just put some examples of what some other towns have done in your packet that you can click on. The next item is just that I did get word from Claire Kane from CFPA that we are going to be funded for the safety improvements, the mapping and wayfinding from the bus stop at Mansfield Center. And then we'll be doing some signalized flashing lights across from the new middle school. So that will connect the 2 sides of Mansfield Hollow State Park. And then we'll be kind of doing some wayfinding into the town open space. So that is like $80,000. And we wrote the scope and the budget, but CFPA actually submitted the grant as part of a huge package that they submit every year. And they were really excited because they said that actually our kind of sub project kind of put them over the edge because we had so many things like public transportation and our safe routes to school. So they were able to link that. So that's really good news.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I'm really excited about the project. I think it's a nice equity project because it's really highlighting like how to get to all of it's the nexus of trails in Mansfield. There's so many trails, and then people with public transportation. And anyway, so I think it's good. And then the next item is finally, Deep gave us a contract for the grant that we got last year for the long-term strategy and educational campaign to control fan wart. So we're going to be beginning that. Northeast Aquatic Resources will be doing the majority of the work, that will happen until about, wait, hold on 1 sec. My husband is on the phone. He can't get up. He just had surgery. And that's what we just called. So we'll be starting on that. And then something just to kind of click around on is the Airline Trail State Park Master Plan, which is Connecticut RC&D is doing this as a big master plan for the whole Airline Trail State Park. I met with Jean Davies from RC&D, who's heading up that project, and they're looking for ways to kind of connect into other trail systems. So while the Airline Trail State Park does not go through Mansfield, there is this corner that kind of hits where you could sort of have signage and it would lead you to the southern part of Mansfield Hollow State Park. So I just wanted to let you know that I did have a conversation with her about that. And it's an interesting project that I thought maybe you would like to learn a little bit more. So that's why I included the links there. So that's all I have. Oh, and I did want to let you know that CMC Stores, the golf course property, where they had put in a wetlands application. They have withdrawn their application. They're in the process of redesigning and will resubmit. So that's no longer a live application.
So that what leaves us only one, or the major project that was up by where Two Steps and Holiday Mall was, that's the only one that's active now?
Right. That's
Yeah.
one, and that the public hearing should close on that on February 7th, and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does any member have anything to report? I know Sue and Tom already shared with us about Merrill Meadow. And Miranda,
Which I will move to here in the minutes.
yeah. And Miranda about her neighborhood parks.
I've seen a bobcat twice near the Doorwort property.
Really?
And just down the road, not even maybe a quarter mile, one of our friends saw 3 bobcat kittens in their driveway.
Wow.
We've seen them in our yard, but it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I've captured them on camera at my house.
Ah.
Yeah.
Are they, when are they most active?
I don't know. I know they have a big territory, but I don't know.
I was
And they apparently, they even move the kittens around.
Yeah, I was off, but Gail noticed one laying down on our lawn, pacing around very active. Then she realized that a woodchuck had snuck through our electric fence, and the bobcat was trying to figure out how to get into our fenced garden to have lunch. But the bobcat stalked this woodchuck apparently for about biggest part of an hour.
I believe they often breed around this time of year, so they probably are fairly active right
Yeah.
now.
Beware if you leave my daughter, we've been taking care of our daughter's dog, and it's a small dog, and he had like a good little bobcat lunch.
Coyotes too, this time of year.
Yeah.
Lots of things gearing up for spring births, so.
All
Well, that's
right.
what Groundhog Day is actually about, is the male woodchucks trying to find out which dens to go to as so girls start waking up.
Thought it was about Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Female groundhogs.
But they start scoping out the breeding potential about this time of year, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The being that I was the adoptive parent of the original Connecticut Chuckles, I can say that at this time of year when the males come out, it's odd that they can put their interest in the girls because they are so skinny. I mean, they have gone from big blobbies in the fall down to skinny little nothings at this time of year. So yeah, we would get one brought into the museum in February almost every year. They would be just skin and bones.
Reemerging is tough.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Especially when all you have on your mind is the girls. And there's not much food out there.
Yeah.
And that's likely to get worse.
Okay. Do we have anything else for future meetings?
I have a question. Is this a one-off change, or are we gonna have to adjust our schedule?
This is a one-off change. Tonight, this is I think the 4th. You're supposed to be
Right.
meeting the 3rd Tuesday, and this is the 4th. planning and zoning and inland wetlands were supposed to be meeting on Thursdays. We were trying to get them, so that's when we did your schedule, but they want to stay till Mondays. And so when there's a Monday holiday, then
Yeah,
I had to bump you. That's how
yeah.
the hierarchy goes, I guess.
Okay, well, it wasn't clear to me that it was driven by the holiday.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was driven by planning and zoning moving there. Something we'll have to mind next year or the end of this year as we draw our
Yeah.
meeting schedule.
yeah, we'll just make this a regular meeting, a one-off regular meeting. So that there's no conflict. All right,
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second. Anyone opposed to,
Juliana, second.
yeah, I see Juliana, but okay. And I'll ask Jennifer to stop the recording because we're now adjourned at 8:37.